The COVID-19 pandemic changed the world. While some parts of gaming and esports seem to have flourished, it also brought major challenges to esports franchise models. SBJ and TEO's Kevin Hughes is now joined by Burgess of Beasley Esports, Hunter Leigh of the Golden State Warriors, and Alex Rubens of Kroenke Sports Entertainment, as they all share how they've pivoted during the pandemic and what their vision moving forward is.
All right, hello and welcome everybody. My name is Kevin Hitt, and I'd like to welcome you to the Esports Rising and our panel here on the topic on what COVID-19 and what it's done to the franchise model. We have an absolute rock star cadre of esports experience and expertise lined up to talk about this, so let's go ahead and meet them. First, we have Burgess, the CEO of Beasley Esports, who runs the Houston Outlaws of the Overwatch League and Checkpoint XP. We also have Hunter Leigh, the head of esports with the Golden State Warriors, who runs the Golden Guardians of the North American League of Legends Championship Series and the NBA 2K League. And we've got Alex Rubens, the Senior Vice President of Team Operations of Kroenke Esports. They run the Los Angeles Gladiators of the Overwatch League and the Los Angeles Guerrillas of the Call of Duty League. All right, well, welcome, panelists. I'm glad you guys could make it with us here on this Thursday morning. And as you know, COVID-19 has been, a real big deal here and has turned over the apple cart in some of these sectors. And so I'd just like to start with you, Lori, and, if I can get just a general overview of what you've seen as the overall effect of what the COVID-19 pandemic has had on esports, as it relates to the franchise model, maybe for your own organization and, in the entire esports space. What do you think?
Yeah, so I know this is probably not going to be a popular response, but I think it's actually benefited us greatly. First of all, just to give a little bit of history on the Outlaws, we acquired the team last November at this time. So literally when we bought the team and contracts were already done and we had to plan homestands, we were like going from, first gear to fifth gear literally overnight. And so it was all about implementation and kind of trying to catch up with the Overwatch League and all the planning that they required us to do. So when COVID-19 hit, and I definitely remember the day very clearly on March the 12th, it was like screech, everything stopped. And so what it did for us is, I think, two things. One, it forced us to pivot and really rethink our business. And secondly, it gave us some breathing time to really start to strategize as opposed to be in execution mode. So I know we're going to get into more details on this today, Kevin, but I think it was, I hate to say it, it was a bit of a godsend for the Outlaws.
And Hunter, I know you're just coming off a free agency period that's always described as just absolutely bonkers and crazy. Give us your overall thoughts on what on this topic.
Yeah, I think it just made 2020 even more of a roller coaster year than it probably would have been already. I think there were some amazing opportunities that came along for esports in the wake of traditional sports kind of shutting down for 3, 4, 5 months. But, especially for those of us tied very closely to traditional sports franchises, the hurt in one area sort of inevitably led to hurt in the other area. And I think, how big those opportunities were and what kind of advantages, people were able to take of all the chaos depended a lot on their positioning and their business model and their backers and that kind of stuff. But so yeah, I think it was a year of being on national television and regular cable channels and that kind of stuff, but also a year of scrambling to do remote play and figuring out how to make technology work in a different way and access fans a completely different way. So a total roller coaster.
Yeah, and Alex, I know that you've got a lot of different programs and things that you guys are working on over there at Kroenke. I mean, how did this whole COVID thing affect you guys over there?
Yeah, I'd say overall as a company, probably a little bit of a bummer that we built a brand new shiny stadium that no fans can go to. But from an esports perspective, I'd 100% agree with Lori. It would probably, as a relatively new front office as well, probably benefited us slightly to give us time to catch up. We would have had 4 home series / homestands to put on last year. We only got through one of them. And while that alleviated a lot of the difficulties associated with that, it also, I think, challenged us as a team to get through a lot of new challenges. We never thought that we would have to worry about, putting 14 guys in a team house. What do you do when there's a pandemic? How do you keep them safe? So say it was helpful in some areas, added us a lot more challenges in other areas, and then unfortunately led to us not being able to have fans at our stadium, but hopefully soon.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point of talking about, all of the home matches that we were supposed to have throughout esports in general, home stands and being able to engage and interact with our fans and, create that base. And, this was a year that over the Overwatch League and others, they were supposed to break away from its central competition facility in Burbank and have events played in those home geographical locations. Call of Duty League and League of Legends face similar challenges, and so Lori, did this absolutely change everything? And from your own personal perspective, maybe explain how the process of how you adapted and pivoted during this time.
Yeah, so same like Alex. I mean, we had just finished our homestand. We did it on February 29th and March 1st, and it was wildly successful and awesome. And, we were on the brink of signing our contract where we were going to do our second homestand. Of course, everything, stopped there. And so what we decided to do, we took a few days and decided that we needed to create experiences that could connect our players with our fans virtually. I mean, so our world went full on virtual. So literally, we produced actually a television show in tandem with the Dallas Fuel. We produced a 3-part sports documentary series that actually aired starting the first Saturday in May. And we did 3 weeks of competitions with them, all captured on, virtually. Yeah. So it aired on YouTube and also on linear television. And then we started doing watch parties, virtual watch parties. Yes. I did a deal with GoPro. We got GoPros into our players' homes so we could actually film the players when they were playing, not watching what was on their screen, but watching their reactions. So we basically tried to create what in essence was take this virtual world and bring it to life for consumers so that they could go along for the ride. They could have chats with our players, all that kind of stuff. So, as my team has heard me say a million times, we wanted the virtual experience to be as good, if not better, than the live in-person experience. So we did it. I mean, I kind of can't believe we did it. I cannot believe how fast we did it. But it was good.
Alex, unfortunately, you got both barrels of the COVID shotgun here with both your teams, I understand, the effects of that. Tell us a little bit about how you handled all of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, while they're both Activision leagues, I think for us, Call of Duty and Overwatch run pretty differently. In Overwatch, everyone wants to be in a team house and really be practicing super long hours with each other every single day. And then Call of Duty, people they want their own apartment. They kind of want to treat it a little bit differently. So for us, it was sort of two completely different challenges to solve for at the same time. I think Overwatch was relatively easy because since they were traveling so much, we were sort of forced to catch it early and to adapt really early. So we put protocols in place before a lot of the events were actually canceled just to make sure that they would stay safe. And then for Call of Duty, I'd say a lot of the challenges just came in with everything transitioning online. We had to sort of figure out how to work with them to ensure that we were still getting top quality practice. Everyone was still doing all the marketing things we needed to do and to really get through that. I think that, it gets a lot more challenging when you sort of build your team around showing up for each other in person and really bringing together like a team environment. And then guys are able to wake up maybe 5 or 10 minutes before practice, roll over in their PJs and hop on and scrim. So I think a little bit challenging, but I think it also really tested us to work closely with our coaches and GMs to ensure that we had the right principles and that we were finding players who met that and could really, set us up for success, whether in person or not.
And Hunter, how did this whole COVID thing affect, the Golden Guardians and, your plans that you guys had, before COVID saying, okay, hey, we're going into this thing. We've got a game plan. And then boom, this whole thing hit and just kind of blew everything up. How'd you guys adapt and make it work?
I mean, 2020 was supposed to be the start of a small in-person event calendar, kind of looking at Chase Center and the broader entertainment complex in San Francisco as a destination for esports content, which was always sort of the high-level plan. And we were feeling like, okay, now we're ready. And we had a bunch of conversations and even a couple events lined up for, middle of the summer. That may be like the 2022 strategy instead of the 2020 strategy as things progress, which in one sense was an opportunity to catch our breath and, cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure we were ready for it. But definitely kind of blew up the broader expansion plans that we had sort of put in place for this year, and forced us to kind of refocus on making the best of the opportunities were in front of us, scrambling in how we create content and, connect with players, making sure that everybody's staying safe, kind of all over the country. Our first ever, we flew all of our players from not just the League of Legends teams, but from the other games that we're in, all to LA. We did it on March 10th. And the NBA shut down on March 12th, I think. We just squeaked it in under the wire. And in hindsight, it was probably a horrendous idea. But fortunately, everybody came in safe. It was going to kick off a 2020 of travel and events and other things. Instead, it kind of was the final hurrah of that.
Yeah, and Hunter, what did you see? What worked and what didn't in terms of the adaptations that you guys did and created over there? You saw. Now we're kind of in a place where we can look back and say, okay, these are the things that worked, these are the things that didn't, especially now that, the reality here is that 2021 is probably going to be fairly similar for the first, half of the year. What did you see that worked and what didn't for you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I'd stress is that the fans understood right away that we were in a different world. And I think that led to a natural lowering of expectations around what the content they were receiving would look like and sound like, and how professionally produced it would appear, how accessible maybe their players would be. And then there was an odd mix. In one sense, players got way more accessible. They were streaming more, they're stuck at home, there's less for them to do. They were interacting with fans a lot more than they might have before. In another sense, I think the highly polished content that really, let you dive deeper behind the scenes and sort of expose all of that got a lot harder to make. And we had to kind of get creative around our setups.
Yes.
Ultimately, I think fans were eager for content just like everybody else in the world was when they were stuck at home. And so doing almost anything, given the level of expectations around the teams, led to a lot of success. And we were able to create sort of on the fly digital events with partners that we probably wouldn't have been able to in a normal world, in part because they were just sort of vacuums or openings created in the traditional esports calendars.
Alex, did you see the same thing? A lot more content creation to stay engaged with fans and things like that?
Yeah, I think we saw a lot more opportunities. I think it was difficult to actually capitalize on those, especially because all of our guys were in one house. We weren't really allowing the coaches or GMs to go over just to make sure that everyone stayed safe. And so it's difficult because we couldn't really film a lot of the stuff that we had. So you can do so much remote production, but I think it's also a very different skill than in-person production. So we found a lot of challenges with that. But like Hunter said, it did actually open up a lot of new opportunities that probably our guys would not really want to participate in. So we were able to do, like, meet and greets are a really big part of what our fans want. And we obviously can't do those anymore. So we started doing virtual game nights where we invited fans to come play games with our players. That was huge. The players enjoyed it, actually asking when the next one was. I never thought that players would want to do more marketing requests, but it was a fun opportunity. And so I think we were able to capitalize on a lot of things like that, and also pull together, just trying to find more ways to interact with our fans from a distance. So,
Lori, what worked for you guys and maybe what didn't work? What do you see now looking back? Again, man, it just came like a fireball. You had to, pivot quickly, but now looking back, what worked for you guys? What did you see?
Yeah, so we have made some changes when think about it, like I said, we bought the team. It was already like there was a strong infrastructure in place, allegedly. Our front of house was under-resourced like you cannot believe. And, you've got the players and the coaches all set up, but there's no one to do the work, right? To spearhead the content. We had made a decision in the early days of the Outlaws with the previous leadership to hire a content team to work for us that was based in Chicago. That was not a good decision because they couldn't come here. So we were operating as field supervisors. Yeah. We were writing scripts. It was just nuts. And so that changed what we're doing this year. We've since hired a content team that's based here in Houston. Our marketing director that we've hired from LA is here with us in Houston. And so it just means that everybody can be here. And I know that sounds weird in the world of everybody's socially distanced. Why are we all together? But it means that if someone needs to go to the office, check something out, measure something, execute something, it can all happen. And the other thing that we did that I think was the right thing to do is we hired people that came not just from traditional sports, but that have media backgrounds and that have also worked in the entertainment industry. So we see what we're doing with our talent as they're entertainers. Like they be professional athletes, but they're also entertainers. So, I think the kinds of products and experiences that we're going to be doing next year, and we've even, I have to admit, changed our player contracts to make sure that they're very agreeable to doing so.
Yes.
I think it's going to bode really well for us.
And, Hunter, again, content was one way. What were some other ways that you were able to keep your fans engaged, during these times where they weren't able to come to those, live events? And how big of a focus is this going to be maybe first half 2021 if we're unable to hold live events still?
Yeah, I think we had an interesting mix of the league, the LCS, and this was true, I think, of the bigger sports leagues, getting some unique opportunities to hit more casual audiences or people who are not as well informed about maybe as regular watchers of the LCS. So we were on ESPN2 and some other places. And I think that changed the nature of the content that we created a little bit to be a little bit more welcoming and educational than it might have been otherwise. And I think that's an opportunity that we'll continue to look for, is that esports is an interesting mix of widening the funnel. And widening the funnel in this case, historically, it was let's get more people who play the game to watch the esport. And that is still going on. That is a way to kind of widen the esports funnel in a way. But the other direction that we can go necessarily play the game and figure out how to make traditionally what are games or spectating experiences that have huge and high barriers to entry much more approachable for people who are looking for something and might have sort of stumbled onto this for one reason or another in a way that they wouldn't have normally. And I think that's an effort that the teams can undertake and really lead the charge on, as we have those kind of stars or approachable players, but also something that the league can drive and will be a focus of certainly the first half of the year till things get closer to normal or something approaching normal.
Alex, 2021, how big of a focus is fan engagement? What are you guys looking forward to doing and trying to, get those fans engaged with your teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the performance venue, which is in the tail end of SoFi Stadium, that we were hoping to hold our esports events at for the next year. It will finally be done by then. I don't think that that's very likely. Maybe we'll see. So we've been trying to think about different ways that we can interact with them. We've been focusing a lot on specifically activating with fans in LA, even though we can't meet up with them or really, do in-person fan events. So we've been partnering with Gongcha, which is a local bubble tea company, to really focus around gladiator-specific things and things that our fans would like. So I think we've been trying to figure out how we can continue to activate in the LA market under, new COVID-like conditions that make it a little challenging.
And Lori, what are you guys looking forward to over there for 2021 to keep those fans engaged for, as long as we're not able to have these live events?
Yeah, so great question. So obviously content creation is a really big deal. We launched a huge content creator search yesterday. But the other thing that's different for us is we went a different path. We're moving into a new facility in January. Pretty nice facility, not nearly as grand as, and it does not have a venue the way these guys do. But it will accommodate, 100-person studio audience. So we're intending to observe COVID restrictions, but have studio audiences attend our matches where our players will be playing there live in front of the audience, and we'll have the match on the big screen, and having open houses where, again, adhering to COVID safety restrictions, but allowing a handful of our best season ticket holders, our VIP club members, if you will, to be able to come and get to engage with the Outlaws. So we're going to do it small. Like, it's really that intimate studio audience that I think we're going to be able to bring to the table, in addition to virtual events and then obviously a lot of content.
So let's go ahead and we'll get the last words in here and get your opinions on, is esports going to be able to weather this pandemic and survive? And Alex, we'll start with you. Is esports going to weather this pandemic and survive going into 2021, 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think it's shown that the industry can pivot quite well and that the format's not super dependent on live events, right? Those are obviously the big tent poles that we've always focused on. They're the best events. We would obviously love to be having them right now. But I think it's shown that, online play doesn't just have to be week to week regular season matches. Overwatch League pivoted towards tournament formats online, and I think that was really successful. And so if we can continue to find ways like that, I think esports can probably come out better for it, if anything, right? Showing that we don't just have to try to find an arena and fill as many people in as possible to really activate around our leagues. So I think it definitely can weather the storm.
Hunter, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think, one thing that served esports well going into all of this is that it's still super immature and everybody is changing everything on the fly all the time. And so while this wasn't the change anybody expected for this year, nobody has got a business model that's set in stone or a content creation plan that's set in stone or virtually anything that's set in stone. And we'll just adapt to whatever comes next. The industry is solid. It's here to stay in whatever form, the world allows it to exist.
And Lori, will give you the last word as we're running out of time. What do you think?
Hey, I think that huge opportunity. I think we're seeing a sea change here. I think Gen Y, Gen Z is becoming front and center in this country right now. I think all of us on this panel today are working in organizations that are trying to do our very best to educate advertisers, sponsors, brands, if you will, about the opportunities to connect with consumers that can, engage with them digitally. That just has not been the way that professional sports has been able to engage with their audiences. And so I think it's a huge opportunity. So I would say education for brands is where we need to go, because we all are trying to make sure that our businesses can thrive. And in order to do that, we need revenues.
Well, they say time flies when you're having fun, and it looks like that 20 minutes has just flown by for me. So for everybody here at Esports Rising, I just want to thank you so much for coming and being a part of the panel. And I'll tell you what, I'm sure that along with everybody else and myself, we learned a lot. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.